I'm autistic and I'm awesome. This is awesome. Happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy. Hello, this is awesome, and I've just watched a Christmas movie, a Christmas special by Rankin Bass, and I wanted to review it because it surprised me in a way I did not expect. Oh my goodness, I've never cried this much in watching a kids movie in years. Seriously, it's the darkest thing I think I've seen in a long time. It's much darker than a lot of adult movies I've seen, which are meant to be dead sad. I mean, blimey, oh my goodness. It was called like Rudolph and Frosty something, but if you look up Rankin Bass Rudolph and Frosty, you'll find it. But it's basically like a accumulation of all the characters from the other Rankin Bass movies, so you'd have to see them first. You know, the famous ones, the one with the postman, the one with Jack Frost, the one with Frosty, and the one with Rudolph and the Misfit Toys. Those movies, I've seen all of them already, so I knew the context of them. Those are the famous ones. So you've got to watch them first for you to get some of the things in this movie. Just to give you a warning. But I watched this and it's the darkest movie I've seen in a long time. It had some really dark shit in it. It was sort of the way it was done rather than what actually happened. It was done in a much darker way than you would expect. Oh my goodness. Well, let me just sum up the movie real quick. We're trying not to give spoilers anyway, although I am going to give spoilers later. I'll give a non-spoiler description now. Basically, Rudolph, basically we find out that there's this big ice wizard guy which used to control over winter until Santa came along and took over after the Northern Lights came over and used her magic to put the dark wizard to sleep, put the ice wizard to sleep, so he wouldn't terrorize people anymore, and Santa took over. So that's what happened for a long time. All the events of the other movies happened first. Oh yeah, also the one about Father Time. You have to watch that one as well for this movie. So that happened, and then he just woke up years later because she ran out of power to keep him asleep. So he decided he needed to take over everything back again, and he realized that. And then the events of the Rudolph movie happened because he tried to make the storm to stop Santa from giving all these children the toys, but Rudolph stopped him. So then this movie is about him trying to stop Rudolph from having his light. We find out that Rudolph has his light from magic that the Northern Lights gave him when he was a child, and she said, if you ever use this for bad, then the light will disappear. So he tricks Rudolph into doing a bad thing, basically, and losing his light. And then a bunch of stuff happens, and then in the end, they defeat him, and it's happy days. Skipping a lot there, because I don't want to give spoilers. But now here come the spoilers. Some of the influential scenes from this movie are, well, for a start, there's quite a lot of romance in this movie. There's like a really sweet moment with Santa and Miss Santa talking about how much they love each other and the nice times they've had. And it has a lot of backstories in it. So a lot of characters have a lot of relevance to them, which makes it much deeper when something actually happens to them. Whereas in all the other Rankin Bass movies, it's like, oh, here's Frosty, here's Rudolph. They don't have much of a backstory, or it's a very cliche one. So you haven't really got much to relate to them for. But when in this movie, they all have a backstory, and they all have like a song and a bit of a series of clips to show you basically the summary of the other movies, so you get the idea of where they came from. And this actually becomes relevant throughout the movie. The movie is very well written. The plot is amazing. The plot honestly surprised me. Whenever I thought, here's a brilliant idea for what they can do in this situation, but I bet they won't do it. They did it. And I was like, whoa. So yeah, and by the way, this villain is smart. Not only is he smart, he's also incredibly evil. This is the most evil and clever villain I've seen in a long time in a kids' movie, seriously. He's not stupid or overly villainous at all. He is just he's smart and he's devious. He's blooming clever. He comes up with this big, elaborate plot to go against Rudolph, and it works. It actually works. And it turns out that even the failsafe, which he has, works. And just when you think they've won, they lose again, and you're like, oh my god. But now for the spoilers. Basically, Santa, one of the awesome pieces of magic that this guy has, he has the magic to give people thoughts. I think that's probably the best magic. He's basically got mind reading. He's got psychic powers. He sends a cloud of snow with whispers in it into their heads so that they get ideas. So he gives them the ideas he wants them to have. So they go and do the thing that he wants them to do, and then he sets the trap for them. So he gives this postman, he really wants this to meet this girl who's in a circus, but the circus is getting run down and is going to go out of business and be bought off by this horrible man. So and if he does, she'll have to leave the circus and he won't be able to meet her anymore. So Rudolph says that he'll help him by being an attraction at the circus to help them get some more money, so that they won't be bankrupt and they won't have to be bought by this guy. So they agree to this. This happens because he puts the idea in the guy's head to tell Rudolph to help him, and they also put the idea in their head to bring Frosty and his family with him as well. He has a wife and some kids in this. They are pretty cute, I have to say. And so they go, but we're going to melt. Since we're snowmen, we're going to melt. So then this guy pops up, and he pretends to be a nice guy, the villain, and he goes, here, have these amulets, but they're only going to work at the end of the fireworks on the 4th of July. At the end of the circus performance. So you better come back, otherwise you're going to melt and you're going to be dead. Pretty much. So this is already pretty serious stakes, way more serious than any other Bank and Bass movies, but they go, okay, and they go off. And they go to the circus. Everything seems fine. They have this big show and everything. Then in the meantime, the villain is going through this jail of villains, and he finds an old reindeer that's really sour and doesn't like Rudolph, and uses him in his plot to trick Rudolph into doing something bad. So he takes him, and he takes this nasty deer, and takes him off there and convinces him to join him in his plan to stop Rudolph. So he takes him and he tells him to make friends with Rudolph. So he goes there and says, oh, I'll put all that in the past. Let's just be friends. Help me have a job in the circus. So Rudolph goes, okay, whatever. I'm not a bad guy, so I'll let you have a job at this circus. So he goes, okay. So he gets his job of getting items and picking them up and doing deliveries around the circus while everyone's busy. Rudolph has to do his show soon, where he uses his nose to flash up and show all people his lights and do his show in the circus. Meanwhile, this guy, being sneaky, he dresses up the old circus man who wants to steal the circus as a policeman who's supposed to take the payment for the circus. So he dresses up as him, and he convinces Rudolph to use his light to help him find and pick up the money to give to the policeman. So he gives it to the wrong guy by accident. Turns out he did something bad, so his light doesn't work anymore. So he can't do the performance. Everyone wants their money back, and the circus goes bankrupt. So you're thinking, that's bad enough, right? And already a rather genius plan by this villain. It really is something like off a adult movie. So do this, and you think, that's bad enough, right? Not only does he do that, but also he comes along and rubs it in. He rubs the salt in the wound. The villain comes along in his fake sleigh to steal Santa's fame, which is what he wanted to do in the first place, so he could get the power of the children as powerful magic to take over and be more powerful than Santa. So he comes over with his snake sleigh, which is pretty weird. Slither away. I like the way he does that. So he goes with his sleigh, and he comes over and he says, okay, Rudolph, if you don't want your... also, he makes this massive storm to stop Santa from coming over to pick up the snowmen before the fireworks end, so that they're going to die. They are actually going to die. And it shows the poor Frosty and his family counting down the fireworks, without counting down when they're going to die. It's blooming sad. Not just like counting down going, oh no, it really does say counting down till the end of our lives. It does actually say that. And they're crying and they're talking about the nice times they had and start singing about how much they love each other, the parents, tell the children to be brave, everything. It's bloody miserable. It's amazing how sad it is. And it's just so depressing. So they really think they're going to die. And it starts counting down. It goes 96, 97, and this was the 100th firework as the last one where they're going to die. So he says, 97th, when the 97th firework comes along, this bad guy comes along and says, Rudolph, if you tell them that you're guilty and you stole the money and you do not use your lights anymore, then Frosty will live and his family will live. So he's like, shit. So he goes, well, of course, I'm upset, but I'm going to have to give up my nose because I have to. And he didn't even need to do that because his light already didn't work. So he was just rubbing it in the ear. It's like really evil. So he goes, okay, I will. So he goes there, admits he's guilty, and everyone goes, oh my god, how could you? And well, the only one that knows that it wasn't him was Frosty. So everyone hates him, hates poor Rudolph. Rudolph can't say the truth, otherwise Frosty and his family will die. So Frosty and his family are okay just because of this guy who extended the magic. So he's like, well, I don't know what to do. So he just walks off, like, being alone. He's like, no one's going to accept me anymore. Poor Santa and Santa's wife are stuck in this storm, and while they're stuck in the storm, they sing a song about loving each other as if they're going to die as well. This is incredibly depressing. And Frosty gets so guilty about the fact that his family was saved by his best friend that he figures out, what can I possibly do to help him? So he decides, because the bad guy puts it in his mind with his mind thing again, he puts this magic snow whisper in his mind and says, and gives him the idea to give his hat away, which is his life. He gives his hat away to the bad guy in order to give him back his light. So, which he actually can't do, but he lies and says he can, because Frosty doesn't know he can't. So he goes over there, and he goes, give me your hat, and I'll restore his light. He steals his hat, he dies, and Rudolph gets nothing. So Rudolph comes over, finds out that he's dead, and he's like, oh my god. So that makes it even worse. And then I'm thinking, the only thing that could make this worse is if the family of this poor Frosty guy come over and see him dead, and they do. And the mother goes, children, don't look. And it's like, oh my god. And then it's so sad. It's miserable. And the way that he also talks about how much he loves his family before he decides to do it as well. Before he gives his hat away, like he really knows he's gonna die. It's like, oh my god. So he does all of this, and the Rudolph is like, are you evil bastard? You know, like proper, like, oh my god. So he goes to get angry and attacks him, and he does this proper fight scene, which is awesome. Goes and steals the hat back, and goes to give it to the snowman. So he gives it to the snowman. He finds the real policeman, tells him what happened, so that he gets accepted that he's not guilty, and he gives him back his hat. So here the snowman becomes alive again, and everything is good, except the Frost guy's still alive. So obviously he comes over and says, I'm gonna kill you all. So obviously they have to stop him. So this woman with some guns throws the guns at his ice wand, so he can't use his ice wand anymore. And because he can't use his ice wand, apparently his ice wand was part of him, so he turns into a tree, which is never explained. But for some reason he turns into a tree with a horrible face, pretty damn scary, and he dies because he becomes a tree. Except one thing we didn't remember is there's all this happy parade and everything's happy, and one thing that I was thinking, wait a minute, if his magic is gone, the necklaces, and I didn't even realise. I was just so happy to have a happy part of the movie. I didn't even realise, and then Rudolph actually realised halfway through. He went, wait a minute, the magic, Frosty. So he goes over, and Frosty and the wife and the kids are all melted and dead, and everyone's crying over them. It's like, oh my god, yes, it gets worse. So then it turns out Rudolph mentioned to the whale from the Time one. He goes over to one where you have to rescue the baby of time. It's another movie that Rankin Bass did. So he goes over to this whale guy comes along at just the right moment and brings Frosty, which can bring them back to normal. So Frosty comes along and fixes up all the guys so the whole family is safe, and he starts blowing them while Santa finally makes it here because the storm disappears because he was dead, so the storm doesn't exist anymore. So Santa can finally get here, they pick him up, Frosty stays here to keep them cold as they go in there, and everything's good. That's when the movie ends. It's like, shit. I don't know what else to say. Describing it is bad enough. Seriously, it's only an hour and a half. You should watch it. Rudolph and Frosty, Rankin Bass, Kinbass, Rankin Bass. Yes, seriously, look it up. It's amazing. That's gonna have to do it for my review. I'm just on the fly here because I'm just like, oh wow, this movie. But speaking about Rankin Bass in general, I just love the animation, and it's so creative. It's just nice to see something that's handcrafted, made into a movie. The animation and everything is pretty darn good. So I'd say, and it's got the same voice actors and things from the other movies now. The characters are great. The characters have some kind of development in this one, which is unusual. So yeah, I'd say this is a brilliant movie, even though it's incredibly depressing. I really felt like I went through something here, like I'd done I'm a Celebrity or something. I felt like I had made an achievement watching that movie. So I challenge you to watch that movie and not cry. Seriously, even if you know what's going to happen, you'll still cry, I'm telling you. But thank you for watching. This was awesome. I'll see you next time. See ya.